For today's lesson, we are going to continue working on dividing fractions. And yesterday we had a lot of whole numbers, and today you'll notice in our first problem we do have a fraction as that first number. Nothing changes. We still follow those rules that we developed yesterday. So we're going to keep that first number the same, so the 3/4 will stay as 3/4. Our division will become multiplication, and we will use the reciprocal of 3/8, which is 8/3. And just like yesterday, we are going to look to simplify. And remember, to simplify, we just need a numerator and a denominator. They do not have to be part of the same fraction. So if you notice, we do have a 3 in the numerator. We also have a 3 in the denominator over here. So they're going to essentially cancel each other out, or you can put ones next to them as well. And then you'll see that our other numerator is an 8 and our other denominator is a 4, and we can divide both of those by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we'll do our multiplication. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1, which simplifies down to 2. And since it says how many pieces did Mary cut, our answer is 2 pieces. Excuse me. So we have a plank that's 4/5 of a meter in length. A worker cuts it into some pieces, each of which is 1/10 of a meter long. We want to know how many pieces did he cut the plank into. So we're taking an item and breaking it down into smaller equal-sized pieces. That tells us we're going to divide. So we take what we start with, which is the 4/5 of a meter, and we're going to divide it by 1/10. Excuse me. So if we follow our rules, 4/5 will stay the same. Division becomes multiplication. And then we use the reciprocal of our second fraction, which would be 10/1. Now we do not have to simplify at this point. We could do our multiplication as it is. So 4 times 10 is 40. 1 times 5 is 5. And we would need to take then 40 divided by 5 to get 8. And once again, our label is pieces. If we had done our simplifying earlier, we would have divided both the 10 and the 5 by 2 or by 5 to get 1 for 5 and 2 for 10, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So we would have ended up with 8 pieces. Either way we do it. Excuse me. Adam had 5/7 of a liter of water. He used the water to fill a few glasses completely. The capacity of each glass was 2/7 of a liter. How many glasses of water did Adam fill? Well, we have 5/7, and we're dividing that by 2/7. So we keep the 5/7, change division to multiplication, and use our reciprocal. And if you'll notice, once again, we do have a numerator and a denominator that we can simplify. We have a 7 and a 7. And essentially, those 7s will cancel each other out, which leaves us with 5/2. And 5/2 does simplify down to 2.5. But if we read our problem carefully, it says that, excuse me again, he used the water to fill a few glasses completely. Well, a half a glass is not filled completely. So the actual answer to the question of how many glasses of water did Adam fill is actually 2 glasses, because half a glass is not filled completely. The math is correct for 2.5, but based on the question and based on that glasses are filled completely, we would have to have an answer of 2 glasses. Lena had 2/3 of a pizza. She cut it into pieces that were each 1/9 of the whole pizza. Into how many pieces did she cut it? So we'd have 2/3 divided by 1/9, which is 2/3 times 9/1. 3 becomes 1. 9 becomes 3. Excuse me. And 2 times 3 is 6. And so our answer is 6 pieces. So now we just have some straight division sentences here that we need to complete. So for number 18, that would be 2/3 times 6 over 1. We can divide both 3 and 6 by 3 to get 1 and 2 respectively. 2 times 2 is 4. Number 19, 3/5 divided by 1/10 would be 3/5 times 10 over 1. Divide both of those by 5 to get 1 and 2 respectively. 3 times 2 is 6. 3/4 divided by 1/2 would be 3/4 times 2 over 1. Can divide both of those by 2 to get 2 and 1, which would give us 3 over 2, which simplifies down to 1 1/2. Excuse me. Number 21, we'd have 1/6 times 3/2. Divide both those by 3 to get 2 and 1 respectively. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, so we'd have an answer of 1/4. Number 22, we would make that 5/8 times 16/15. Divide both of those by 5 to get 1 and 3. Divide both of those by 8 to get 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. So we'd have an answer of 2/3. Finally, number 23, we have 7/16 times 12/5. I can divide both 12 and 16 by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 7 times 3 is 21. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 goes into 21 one time with 1 left over. So it would be 1 and 1/20. If we have an improper fraction or a mixed number, nothing much changes. There is a step that we have to add if we have mixed numbers, but if we have an improper fraction, we follow the same steps as before. We keep the first number as is, convert division to multiplication, use the reciprocal. There's no simplifying we can do here. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 7 is 14. Excuse me. We do have to be very careful if we have a mixed number. If we have a mixed number, it is extremely important that we convert that mixed number into an improper fraction first before finding the reciprocal. So in other words, we need to add a step when we have mixed numbers, and the first step is to convert any mixed numbers to improper fractions, and then we follow our rules for dividing fractions. All right, sorry, I had to pause there for a second. So just to recap, we do need to convert to improper fractions, and then we would follow our rules for dividing fractions that we did yesterday. Okay. So here we have 3/4 divided by 1 1/2. So if I were to rewrite that as a division sentence, we have 3/4 divided by 1 1/2. Well, 3/4 is already a fraction, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. And at this point, we are still dividing. I cannot stress that enough, that at this point we are still dividing. We're not converting to multiplication just yet, because the only thing we're doing is taking that 1 1/2 and converting it into an improper fraction, which would be 3/2. Excuse me. So now we would follow our rules for dividing fractions. 3/4 stays the same. Division becomes multiplication. And we use the reciprocal of 3/2, which is 2/3. I look to simplify. The 3's would cancel out. I can divide both 4 and 2 by 2 to get 2 and 1, which gives me an answer of 1/2. So if I'm dividing 5/9 by 4 1/3, I would have 5/9 divided by 4 1/3. So 5/9 Again, I'm still at division at this point because the only thing I'm doing is converting 4 1/3 into an improper fraction. And my improper fraction would be 13/3. So I keep the first number the same, convert division to multiplication, and use the reciprocal of 13/3, which is 3/13. I can then divide both the 9 and 3 by 3. The 9 would become a 3. The 3 becomes a 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 13 is 39. Excuse me. And then my final problem today, 2 3/5 divided by 1 8/9. So 2 3/5 as an improper fraction would be 13/5. Again, I'm still dividing at this point. And 1 8/9 would be 17/9. So I keep the first number the same, convert division to multiplication, and use the reciprocal 17/9, which is 9/17. Unfortunately, there's no simplifying I can do, so I would need to take 13 times 9, which is 117, 5 times 17, which is 85. 85 goes into 117 one time. 117 minus 85 is 32, so my answer is 1 32/85. And there's today's lesson. As always, I hope this helps.